Part 17. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 161. No one knows what happened in that wooden house. At this time, Zuyun got off the horse with a frightened look on his face and looked around cautiously. The light beam on his body has disappeared since he rushed into this formation, and the fragments in his chest no longer vibrate. With his keen guess, the relationship between the secret realm and the Dewu glazed realm can be solved here. I just don't know why, but the horse brought him straight here. The only explanation is that Mater has been living here since he accidentally entered the secret realm. And he clearly felt that he had gone through two formations. One is the large formation when his light beam disappears, and the second is the small town covering this small courtyard. He had never heard of this formation within a formation and had no idea how to unravel it. Of course, the current problem is not to solve this formation, but... He turned around and looked behind him, seeing two people and one monster. Zuyun recognized that it was Mu Qingxin sitting on the demon's back. That demon was undoubtedly transformed by Zhao Kamang. Combined with what shopkeeper Li told him before, it is obvious that Zhao Kamang is also practicing the Chuzhu demon control sex techniques. But another female cultivator floating in the air also gave him a feeling of déjà vu. Zuyun couldn't imagine that Meng Wei, who had lived for more than 500 years, originally looked like a little girl, but after a few years, he turned into an adult-sized figure. At this time, another icy blue sword light rushed into the formation, and suddenly fell to the ground in his shock. Sun Qiniang. It is said that three women are a drama, and Zuyun had a bad feeling. But fortunately, the three people outside the small formation could not see his existence. Just then, two voices suddenly came from the room in front of him, and Zuyun suddenly came back to his senses in shock. The first person to speak was a rich male voice. I didn't expect that this time, this mortal horse would really bring a young monk in the foundation building stage. Then another charming female voice sounded, no matter how ordinary a horse is, it will become a spiritual horse after eating the spiritual grass in this sacred object of this palace. Of course, it can communicate with spirits and know what we mean. My palace? Holy object? Zuyun was horrified, feeling two huge spiritual consciousnesses sweeping over his body from time to time, and he didn't dare to move at all. Although he never decided to enter the secret realm, he heard rumors about the secret realm from the mouths of Lao He and his wife. Also, when he was trapped in Juyang Tower, Mu Qingxin also told him some things. The most widely spread story in Yeazhu is the battle between the master of Yaluo sect and the master of Wanjian Mountain 300 years ago. Among the speculations of many people, they all thought that some kind of seal was broken in the secret realm due to the battle between the two. These speculations are not important to everyone at this time. What is important is that the two people speaking are most likely the sect master of Yaluo Zhong and the master of Wanjian Mountain. Two of the most powerful men at the peak of the late stage of pill formation. At the same time, a male voice sounded as if there was no one else around, confirming Zuyun's guess at this time. Hey, Palace Master Luo, he said, ignoring Zuyun's presence, we have agreed that if the male cultivator comes, he will be possessed by my golden elixir and leave this miserable place. Master Wanchen, Palace Master Luo said in a relaxed tone, when did you say that? Why don't I remember it? After the words fell, the atmosphere suddenly condensed, and the two spiritual consciousnesses that seemed to be sizing up Zuyun shrank back instantly. Zuyun felt relieved, but then heard a violent crashing sound from inside the house. Boom. On the way here, he had recovered 50% of his spiritual power. But at this critical moment, I don't know how many treasure building periods I will encounter if I return the same way. Not to mention how to deal with the strange female cultivator outside the small formation, Sun Qiniang who is stalking him, and Mu Qingxin who has unclear thoughts. Luo Yanv, stop fighting, that kid is going to run away. Seeing Zhu Yun being so decisive, Lord Wanchen screamed. Palace Master Luo said disdainfully, "This is a sacred object in my sect after all. Without my permission, the small wooden house array is only allowed in and out. How can he escape?" But as soon as they finished speaking, they suddenly discovered that Zhu Yun had rushed out of the small formation. The fight between the two stopped instantly, and after a while, Master Wanchen shouted unwillingly, "Luo Yanv, I want you to die, I want you to die." Zhu Yun didn't know that because of his decisive escape, the resentment of the two people trapped here completely exploded. His guess was not wrong. These two people were Luo Yanran, the leader of Yaluo sect, and Wan Jianren, the leader of Wanjian Mountain. But he didn't know, or couldn't guess at all, that of the two of them, only Jin Dan was trapped in the wooden house. This wooden house is just like the alchemy room in his third fragment, it also has a formation restriction left behind. At that time, Fen Tianyan had exhausted all his spiritual power and was still unable to break through. What's more, the two of them only had golden elixirs left, and many of their methods were restricted and could not be used. Therefore, even if they fight, they can only rely on the brute force of the golden elixir to collide. Therefore, after being trapped in the formation, they mostly just bicker. Because no one can do anything to anyone. This secret realm is actually one of the fragments of the Diwu glazed mirror, and they are among the fragments. While still outside the secret realm, clues were already revealed, that is, the more than 10 light gates suddenly merged into one in front of Zhu Yun. At that time, Zhu Yun instantly became the focus of the entire Zilang Peak. Under the watchful eyes of more than 10 Jindan stage cultivators in the air, even if he wanted to collect the fragment, he did not dare to make any unusual movements. In desperation, he broke into the light gate of the secret realm. As soon as he entered the secret realm, he met those foundation building cultivators who entered it almost at the same time as him. These people could find that the abnormality came from Zhu Yun, not to mention those Jindan stage cultivators outside. After killing these people, Zhu Yun instinctively wanted to hide in the space in the mirror and restore his spiritual power first. But he never thought that this was originally an integrated space. As a result, the fragment vibrated, triggering the light column, and was discovered by Wan Jianren and the others, so they sent the horse to check the situation. And that horse was the one that Zhu Yun wanted to bring into his mirror space that year but suddenly disappeared. In fact, it did not disappear, but appeared here. Or it can be said that this is the rule of Daoliuli mirror. This fragment of the secret realm has been passed down as a sacred object in the Yaluo sect for countless years, but no one has ever claimed its owner with blood. But after all, it is an immortal treasure. Even if it is broken, these fragments still have an invisible connection. Zhu Yun rushed out of the small formation, his mind was like lightning, and in the blink of an eye he decided to lean on Sun Qiniang first. In his opinion, he knew Sun Qiniang well, and at most he would let her scold him and help him solve the dilemma first. But he didn't know at all that Sun Qiniang was Jian Tianming who wanted to kill him. Seeing that the person running towards him was Zhu Yun, Jian Tianming was also slightly stunned, and then a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Sun Qiniang, hurry up, there are 2 Jindan stage here." Zhu Yun didn't notice anything wrong at all, but reminded her first. But just after he finished speaking, Zhu Yun's soul strength far exceeded that of an ordinary foundation building stage, which made him feel the oncoming murderous intent first. "After searching everywhere for something, I finally found it without any effort. Zhu Yun, prepare to die." In the formation, Sun Qiniang, who was floating in the air while standing on the ice blue sword, should be said to have met Tianming. She had a stern face, her sleeves fluttering, like an ice fairy dancing in the air. Snowflakes flew everywhere, constantly surrounding Jian Tianming and growing stronger. "Zhu Yun, get out of the way. That's Jian Tianming's 10,000 miles of ice." And Meng Wei also discovered at this time that the person who came was Zhu Yun, and she couldn't help but scream and acted hastily. But she didn't have her own magic weapon, her sleeves kept swinging, and all the spiritual power in her body condensed into black shadows, attacking Jian Tianming surrounded by snowflakes. Mengwei. It's you. Hearing such a familiar voice and seeing such a familiar move, Zuyun didn't have time to ask Ergu where he was in joy, but the surroundings were already frozen. Mengwei was a bit too slow after all, and watched Zuyun being frozen into an ice sculpture. Jian Tianming. You dare to move under my nose, you will die today. Mengwei felt as if his heart was torn apart, and the resentment that had been dormant for many years was finally released at this moment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 162. Mengwei, do you think I'm afraid of you? Jian Tianming dodged, and turned his head with a chuckle, looking at Mu Qingxin on the ground, showing a bright smile like Sun Qiniang, sister, the one opposite is the remnant of Yaluo sect. Although I don't know what prejudice you have against sword cultivators, I, as the elder of Wanjian Mountain, invite you to fight demons and defend the way together, how about it? Jian Tianming, who was still Sun Qiniang in Zhuyang town that day, had met Mu Qingxin once. But it was not very friendly at that time. Mengwei didn't have his own magic weapon, so he couldn't do anything to Jian Tianming for a while. He also felt that she was in the middle stage of foundation building, and Zuyun, who was frozen in ice, would definitely die. He simply kept his strength and turned to look at Mu Qingxin. Her eyes were slightly condensed. As long as Mu Qingxin showed a little willingness to join forces with Jian Tianming, she would immediately kill Mu Qingxin first. After all, compared with Jian Tianming, a foundation building in the early stage with a monster, Mengwei was more confident. Mu Qingxin looked straight ahead at Jian Tianming in the air, and shook her head and said, originally, I was traveling with her on the secret realm, and my grandfather also designated him as my husband. When he said this, Mengwei was delighted, but a sour taste rose in his heart. At the same time, Jian Tianming's smile froze instantly. According to her assessment of herself and Mengwei at this time, the two were in a very delicate balance. This is why he wanted to win Mu Qingxin as his helper. However, he heard Mu Qingxin change the subject and gritted his teeth and said, I treated him with sincerity, but he lied to me first. He was obviously called Zuyun, but he called himself Yunzu. Not only that, he also stole everything my grandfather had and ran away, almost destroying the foundation of my Zhuyang sect. As he said this, Mu Qingxin's green light rose sharply, and he covered Mengwei directly. Mengwei's face changed drastically. How could she know that Mu Qingxin would attack as soon as she said she would, without any hesitation? Even when the green light rose, Zhao Kamang, who had turned into a monster, roared, jumped up out of thin air, and stretched out his huge claws to grab Mengwei. Good opportunity. The sudden change even Jian Tianming did not expect, and immediately took advantage of the victory to pursue, pinched out a series of ice and snow blades in his hands, and shot them at Mengwei to block her retreat. But Mengwei was once a strong man in the Jindan period, and his reaction was extremely sharp. After narrowly dodging the combined attacks of two people and one monster, she fell to the ground panting. There was only a flash of determination on her face, and she held a blood-red pill in her slender jade hand. Yaluo disintegration method. With a delicate shout, Mengwei spit out a mouthful of blood, but with it came a sudden rise in her momentum. Then she quickly stuffed the pill into her mouth. It was the longevity pill that Zuyun had made for him. This was the third and last pill he had taken. Originally, Mengwei had 5 pills. Zuyun gave her one to try first. After finding that the pill was effective, Zuyun made 4 more before she left. Before crossing the Hongduan Mountains, Mengwei took one to kill Wang San. Later, when Sun Suanhu left Yaluo sect, she gave him one. Another one was given to Ergu. Longevity pill. Jian Tianming was shocked. As an opponent who was very familiar with Mengwei, she naturally knew that Mengwei's Yaluo disintegration method could directly improve the realm strength, but the price was extremely high and required the burning of life. And the longevity pill was equivalent to directly offsetting the consumption of life. Fight. Seeing Mengwei's momentum rising, Jian Tianming's face was stern and he also made a decision. 10,000 swords eliminating pills. As soon as the words fell, a golden light suddenly appeared on her body. With her body as the center, pieces of goose feather like snow wrapped around her. Under the irradiation of this golden light, it actually emitted a 7-color rainbow light. The snowflakes quickly wrapped Jian Tianming into a snowman. Unlike Mengwei, the snowman seemed to block all of Jian Tianming's momentum. But Mu Qingxin would never doubt how terrifying the momentum contained in the snowman was. But what she didn't know was that in the ice sculpture behind her, Zuyun condensed even more terrifying energy. Jian Tianming's realm was higher than his, and he also used the means of the Jindan period. It was another sneak attack, coupled with such a mysterious means, Zuyun had no time to dodge and was frozen. But Sun Qinyang's memory didn't know, and she couldn't tell Jian Tianming at all that Zuyun was carrying the heavenly fire. Just when his blood, even the spiritual power running in his meridians, and the Dao platform in his danshan were all frozen, the heart of burning sky flame to protect its master made it quickly ignite under the Dao platform, thus ensuring Zuyun's sobriety. While letting burning sky flame slowly melt his body from the inside out, he observed the movements of the 3 people outside. It was also because of this that he learned that Mu Qingxin was no longer the Mu fairy who would blush when she saw her, and Sun Qinyang had become the elder Jian Tianming of Wanjian Mountain. Mengwei had also changed. But Mengwei's heart had not changed even though he had changed. He had a trace of confusion. The so-called righteous people change when they say they will change, and they turn their faces when they say they will turn their faces. On the contrary, Mengwei of the demonic path remained the same as always. Righteous path? Demonic path? Zuyun did not dwell on this issue too much, he only believed what he saw with his own eyes and what he thought in his heart. It can be seen that Mengwei and Jian Tianming are probably evenly matched, and the only variable is Mu Qingxin. And it will take at least a cup of tea for him to completely melt and recover. Wait. Zuyun suddenly saw Zhao Kamang waiting for an opportunity beside Mengwei from the corner of his eye, and the puppet soul control technique appeared in his mind involuntarily. Not to mention the foundation building stage, even if it is above the 6th level of Qi refining, such as text skills, if there is no special restriction, the cultivators can read 10 lines in their minds at a glance. Zuyun was in the Dao glass mirror. After unlocking the lock array of the golden Nanmu box, he took a closer look at the puppet soul control technique and memorized the spell to control the puppet. The spell said that the most important thing to control the puppet is to let your spiritual consciousness connect to the mark in the puppet's brain, so as to give instructions to the puppet through your own soul consciousness. Although Mu Qingxin is now controlling Zhao Kamang, Zuyun is fully confident that he can turn the tables. Because after swallowing the soul control pill, he used the burning sky flame to refine the medicinal power that was left as a mark into the power to nourish and strengthen his soul. That means his soul strength is far greater than Mu Qingxin, and he can take control of the puppet. Then it is equivalent to Zuyun having an extra helper in the late stage of foundation building. Mengwei, hold on for a while, I will help you after I learn the soul control technique. After muttering a few words in his heart, Zuyun gave Burning Sky Flame the order to continue melting the ice, and then closed his eyes, concentrated his mind, and began to recall the control formula of the soul control technique. One by one, the characters floated in front of his eyes, and Zuyun read them word by word. His soul is far beyond the ordinary foundation building period, and he learns much faster than Mu Qingxin. Not to mention that this control formula is actually the entry method of the original soul control demon sect, which is very easy to master. After a moment, Zuyun had memorized the control rules by heart. He suddenly opened his eyes, and only the outermost thin layer of the ice sculpture remained. However, at this moment, Meng Wei suddenly screamed, and blood mist spurted out of her body, as if countless cracks appeared on her body. Her realm did not improve much at all, and she was originally controlled at the peak of the late Foundation building period. Zuyun suddenly recalled that it seemed that this secret realm restricted the entry of the Jindan period. So it also restricted Meng Wei's temporary breakthrough? But what about the two Jindan periods in the hut? Thinking of this, he could not turn his head and glanced at the snowman on the side with the corner of his eyes. Bang! With a muffled sound, the snowman exploded, and snowflakes flew. And Jian Tianming, with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, lay down on the grass dejectedly. The spiritual power on his body was chaotic, but the aura of the peak of the late Foundation building period was also vaguely discernible. Just when Zuyun was worried about Meng Wei's injury, he saw Mu Qingxin walking over there with a weird smile on her face. People of the Devil's Way, everyone can kill them. Mu Qingxin said this in a sanctimonious way, but in fact it was to paralyze Jian Tianming. She bent down, put her cherry lips close to Meng Wei's ear, and whispered, "You are fighting for your will. I am afraid you have forgotten that the treasure of the secret realm is on Zuyun? I will kill you first, and then kill that Jian Tianming, and only I will be the fisherman who benefits in the end." After that, she stood up and flashed a murderous intent, and Zhao Kamang's huge demon hand not far away slapped her fiercely. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 163. Boom. Before the demon's hand arrived, Zuyun's ice sculpture exploded first. Mu Qingxin, I didn't expect you to be such a vicious woman. Zuyun shouted, and Mu Qingxin's beautiful eyes flashed with gloom and turned to look over. But she never thought that just when she turned her head, the demon's hand suddenly changed direction and slapped Mu Qingxin fiercely. It was when Zuyun broke through the ice that he used the control method of the puppet soul technique to forcibly control Zhao Kamang. What's going on? Feeling the huge demon power coming from behind, Mu Qingxin hurriedly activated the pseudo-wood spirit bead on her chest, and the green light flashed, quickly formed, covering Mu Qingxin's whole body, forming an extremely solid shield. Bang! With a loud bang, Mu Qingxin was slapped into the distance by Zhao Kamang's demon claws. The green shield shattered layer by layer, like a peeled glass lamp, but it also absorbed all of Zhao Kamang's attack power. She fell from the air without any injury, her eyes full of fear. Meng Wei. How are you? Zuyun quickly rushed forward and protected Meng Wei's side. Little brat, cough cough. Meng Wei smiled for no reason, and seemed to not care about the serious injury on his body at this time. After coughing twice, she said, How can I be in trouble? Go and kill Jian Tianming quickly, and you will repay the favor I have just helped you delay for so long. You are still so arrogant. Don't you see what time it is now? Zuyun complained in his heart, gave Zhao Kamang the order to guard here, and slowly walked towards Jian Tianming. Are you still Sun Qiniang? He asked with an inexplicable look, but he unconsciously clenched the long sword in his hand. Zuyun, of course I am Sun Qiniang. For the favor of me going to the southern market to help you find the foundation building pill, please give me some nourishing pills quickly. Sun Qiniang's memory was completely absorbed by Jian Tianming, so of course she could speak with the tone and expression of Sun Qiniang again. Zuyun shook his head and said, Sun Qiniang is dead. Zuyun, what nonsense are you talking about? Am I not still fine? Have you forgotten that we killed countless sea monsters together in the sea area of Wangxian sect? I said, Sun Qiniang is dead. Zuyun, you. Jian Tianming finally panicked a little. She was completely powerless at this time. If Zhu Yun wanted to kill him, how could he fight back? Otherwise, she would not pretend to be Sun Qiniang again and talk to Zhu Yun for mercy. I don't know why you are Jian Tianming, but I can feel that you are no longer Sun Qiniang. Zhu Yun stretched out his left hand and pointed his index finger at his temple. This was a sudden feeling after his soul became stronger. Even if you are Sun Qiniang, but you just used a killing move on me, you will die. After the words fell, a trace of fear flashed in Jian Tianming's eyes, and a cold light flashed in Zhu Yun's middle-grade spiritual sword, slashing towards her neck. At this moment, Zhu Yun's mind emerged with countless scenes of his encounter with Sun Qiniang. The first sneak attack in the Spirit Sword sect. At the foot of the barren stone mountain, he raised his sword to Zhu Rong's neck. And those encounters and fighting side by side again and again. Zhu Yun knew that this was not the Sun Qiniang at that time, and the killing intent in his heart did not diminish at all. It was because she just took action. But at this moment, the small formation exploded, accompanied by the crazy laughter of a man and a woman, and extremely frenzied spiritual power surged out of it. I don't know what method Luo Yanran and Wang Jianren used to completely destroy the small formation. Even at this time, the surging spiritual power formed a huge shockwave. Zhu Yun's face changed drastically, and he quickly put away his sword and used another earth armor talisman. While doing this defense, Zhu Yun gave Zhao Kamang a new order, that is, to use himself as a meat shield and protect Meng Wei. As for Jian Tianming? Anyway, even if he didn't die in his hands, he would be swallowed by this spiritual power turbulence. Zhu Yun didn't have an obsession to kill Jian Tianming with his own hands. Boy, let's see where you can run this time. Just when Zhu Yun had just finished defending, Wang Jianren's voice suddenly rang out, accompanied by a touch of golden light, and Zhu Yun was so shocked that he couldn't open his eyes at all. A strong sense of crisis rose from the bottom of his heart. Zhu Yun thought it was a cultivator in the Jindan period who attacked him, and didn't know that it was actually Wang Jianren's golden elixir. At this moment, any means were too late. Zhu Yun didn't hesitate at all and drained the spiritual power in his danshan. Chaos Palm. Based on the direction of the golden light in his memory before closing his eyes, Zhu Yun greeted it with a palm. The spiritual power that surged from the broken formation also arrived at this time, constantly bombarding the strange shield formed by the earth armor talisman. This is an earth armor talisman that is filled with earth-type spiritual power. Naturally, its protective power is amazing, and it easily blocks the spiritual power turbulence. And Zhu Yun's palm with all his strength also made Wang Jianren horrified. It was also a pity that he was in the Jindan stage, and even more pity that he was only a golden elixir now. This is why he was extremely agile and barely avoided Zhu Yun's frontal palm, but was also carried away by the strong wind at the edge of the palm power. As luck would have it, Wang Jianren's golden elixir rushed directly into the belly of the horse that had been hiding not far away. On the other side, Luo Yanran's golden elixir rushed towards Mu Qingxin. In her opinion, Mu Qingxin, who is far away from the battle, is only in the early stage of foundation building, and should be the most vulnerable body to be possessed by her golden elixir. But what she didn't expect was that the moment the golden light came into contact with Mu Qingxin, she would gather all her spiritual power to activate the pseudo-wood spirit beads to form a protective shield again. Luo Yanran seemed to have hit a copper wall and an iron wall, unable to succeed at all. The golden elixir was in pain, and he immediately screamed. Ouch! This sound seemed to be a faint sound, but it also carried a charming meaning. Meng Wei, who was hiding behind Zhao Qi's beast body, shouted in surprise and joy, Master! Wei! Meng Wei was raised by Luo Yanran himself and has been with her for hundreds of years. How could she forget? Hearing Meng Wei's voice, he immediately reacted, and Jin Dan instantly changed direction and flew towards the side. Why are you here? Weren't you suppressed by the people of Wanjian Mountain somewhere? No, why are you only in the foundation building stage and you are not dead yet? Luo Yanran's words were incoherent and she couldn't figure out the problem at all. Back then, after Menghui was kidnapped by people from Wanjian Mountain, he was imprisoned under the confused sword cliff of Lingjian section. Luo Yanran searched the entire Yaezhu, but found nothing. In the end, he angered Wanjianren for various reasons. And then used the clan's sacred items to trick her into arriving at Purple Lang Peak. But unexpectedly, an accident happened in the end. Both of them were sucked into the holy object, and their bodies were completely destroyed. Only the golden elixir was left, and they were still trapped in the same wooden house. More than 1,000 years have passed like this. The time flow rate difference between the fragments of Diwu glazed mirror that has not been recognized as its owner and the outside world is still 5:1. 300 years have passed in Yaezhu, and naturally it has been 1,500 years here. Master, if you have something to say later, please come into my sleeve first. Menghui just heard a strong male voice, and could feel that the aura was no weaker than Luo Yanran's, so he already guessed that it must be Wan Jianren. This little bitch Jian Tianming has actually become the foundation establishment stage. What happened? Is time reversed? Luo Yanran was even more surprised when she saw the dying Jian Tianming not far away. If her body was still there, it would definitely have shocked her to the point of dislocating her jaw. Menghui had no time to pay attention. After Luo Yanran hid in, he carefully looked at Zhao Kamang's body. When he saw that there was no golden light around him, he couldn't help but look at Zuyun worriedly. She was also in the elixir forming stage, so she naturally knew the two methods of elixir detachment and golden elixir possession. He was worried that Zuyun was possessed by Wan Jianren. Zuyun, are you okay? Zuyun immediately came back to his senses, his eyes turning back and forth between the horse and Mu King's from time to time, and at the same time he said in a deep voice, "It is not suitable to stay here for a long time, you first ride on the monster." Menghui was particularly obedient at this time, and Zhao Kamang was lying on all fours just now, so she easily climbed onto the demon's back. Zuyun then slowly retreated towards Zhao Kamang, and Menghui realized at this moment that Zuyun actually wanted to ride with him. A shy blush flashed across his cheeks, and he said urgently with a trembling voice, "Zuyun wanted to ride with him. Yun, where is your horse?" "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 164. Zuyun turned his back to Menghui and retreated to her side, then climbed directly onto Zhao Kamang's demonic back. The air was filled with a chilling atmosphere. Zuyun couldn't remember the relationship between men and women. Even in his subconscious, Menghui was just a little girl in her teens. He only felt Menghui's delicate body trembling slightly. Zuyun did not think too much, but continued, "The man from Wanjian Mountain just now, I shot the golden elixir into the horse's belly." Horse belly. Inside Menghui's sleeves, Luo Yanran exclaimed, and then laughed like a crazy woman, "Ha ha ha, you actually photographed Wan Jianren inside the horse's belly. Now it's really fun. Just change his name to 10,000 riders." Hearing this voice, Zuyun realized that only one of the two golden elixirs of light could be seen. It turned out that she was hiding in Menghui's sleeve. "Little guy, you are very good. I have been fighting with Wan Jianren for countless years, and there has never been a winner. I didn't expect to suffer a big loss at your hands." Luo Yanran was very happy to see how comfortable Zuyun was. Zuyun didn't have time to joke with Luo Yanran. He was thoughtful and immediately knew that she was Menghui's master. He also slightly raised his guard and said, "Senior, if you have anything to say, I'll talk to you later. Let's get out of here first." As he spoke, he controlled Zhao Kamang to turn around and run towards the distance. As for those who stayed here, whether it was Jian Tianming whose life or death was unknown, Wan Jianren who accidentally possessed the horse, or Mu Kingzin, who looked incomprehensible not far away, Zuyun couldn't care too much. He took a deep look at the small courtyard and thought to himself, I will come back. Zhao Kamang's speed was extremely fast. During the gallop, Meng Wei, whose face was red, suddenly said, Zuyun, Ergu is also in the secret realm. How about we go find him first? After hearing this, Zuyun was extremely excited. At this time, he had left the relatively dangerous situation. Moreover, he had no fixed target, so he said with great joy, Great, can you find him? Meng Wei nodded. Zuyun, who was sitting next to her, could only see a sliver of white skin swaying in front of his eyes. It was Meng Wei's pink neck. Feeling Zuyun's breathing that suddenly became slightly wheezing, with a stream of hot air, Meng Wei said in a voice as thin as a mosquito, I took him into the secret realm with me, but he only had the 8th level of Qi refining, so I gave him his life magic weapon protect him. As long as we can find the magical weapon, we can actually find him. As soon as he finished speaking, Meng Wei's pretty face suddenly tightened, and he said urgently, when I came to chase the light beam before, my magical weapon suffered a round of attacks. Maybe the two dogs were in danger. We have to get there quickly. It was about Ergu. Zuyun suddenly looked stern, but Luo Yanran said sternly, Wei, why are you handing your life magic weapon into the hands of others? Aren't you afraid that he will use it to threaten you? Meng Wei hurriedly explained, Master, it's not what you think. Those two dogs have learned the Qi refining method of our Yaluo sect, and they can be regarded as members of our Yaluo sect. The disciple brought him here just to find Yaluo section Luo Cao, thus wishing him a breakthrough. Luo Yanran's tone was a little strange, are those two dogs female? Male, male. The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and even when they were sitting on Zhao Kamang's back, the sound of the wind whizzing backwards suddenly disappeared. After a moment, Luo Yanran uttered a sentence, Meng Wei, you are really good. Zuyun hurriedly interrupted, Senior, now is not the time to dwell on this issue. We must at least find Meng Wei's natal magical weapon first. Otherwise, what will we do if we encounter a strong enemy again? Also, Zuyun used the Chaos Palm and lost all his spiritual power, not to mention Meng Wei. After using the Yaluo disintegration technique, not only did his realm not improve, but he also suffered the backlash from the rules of this secret space, even worse than Zuyun. Not as good as. As for Luo Yanran, she had just teamed up with Wang Jianren to break through the wooden house formation, which almost consumed all their strength. This is why, after knowing that Wang Jianren was shot into the horse's body by Zuyun, he would gloat about his misfortune. Laugh wildly. Because she knew that if Wang Jianren, whose spiritual power was disordered, did not want his golden elixir to be destroyed, he could only choose to possess that horse. Humph, I'll settle the score with you then. Luo Yanran knew that what Zuyun said was reasonable, so she put the topic aside for the time being and turned her attention to Zuyun. She said dissatisfiedly, Hey, kid, don't get so close to my apprentice. Zuyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he still moved his butt towards the back with difficulty, thinking in his heart that the leader of Yaluo sect was like a raging shrew, scolding anyone he caught. Zuyun stuffed a Qi condensing pill into his mouth, took out a spiritual stone and held it in his hand to restore his spiritual power. He then changed the subject and said, Senior, why are you and Wang Jianren trapped in the wooden house? He deliberately pretended that he didn't know there was a formation in the wooden house, but in fact he was just trying to find out what was going on in the wooden house. This is a long story. Being locked up in a wooden house and facing Wang Jianren Jindan every day, Luo Yanran had actually been suffocated for a long time. When she heard Zuyun's question, she opened her chatterbox and started talking non-stop. It turns out that back then, Luo Yanran took the fragment of the Dao-glazed mirror and deceived Wang Jianren to go to Zilang Peak, intending to kill him to avenge Meng Wei. The fragment has been a sacred object of Yaluo sect for thousands of years. With the efforts of countless ancestors, they also developed a spell on the fragment, which can be driven by spiritual power to temporarily imprison the enemy's physical movements. This is also the reason why Wanjian Mountain mobilized the entire sect to seize their sacred objects. But who knows, Wanjianren is cunning, and he has been prepared long ago. When Luo Yanran used the fragments to imprison his body, he immediately used an unknown mysterious method to swap their bodies. Luo Yanran knew something was wrong. It was already a life and death situation at that time, so he desperately used his special skills. Wanjianren is so shrewd, and he can see that there is no way out except to fight hard. Both of them were at the peak of the late stage of pill formation. With one full blow, they blasted all the rocks above the Zilang Peak mountainside into pieces. Even their bodies were completely destroyed. But because of this, the aftermath of the powerful spiritual power inadvertently inspired the fragments. Before the dust and smoke of Zilang Peak dispersed, their golden elixirs were sucked into the space, and the fragments also fell to the ground below, and were finally buried by the rubble. Luo Yanran and Wanjianren didn't know they were among the fragments at first. They thought their fight was too fierce and they tore a rift in space, appearing in a whole new world. They fought for a long time with only the golden elixir, but they couldn't tell the winner at all, so they stopped fighting tacitly, and started bickering while trying to figure out a way out. But just with the power of one person's golden elixir, it is impossible to break through the formation. After 500 years of being so confused and extremely bored, their spiritual senses finally noticed someone passing nearby. However, they discovered that not only was their spiritual consciousness restricted, but there were also small formations and large formations outside the wooden house, and their voices were completely restricted within the small formations. After several days of observation, they discovered that this place turned out to be a secret place for treasure hunting. Because every monk who passes by here will search on the grass from time to time. If he has found something, his expression can be seen at a glance. As long as there are people, they feel there is hope. But unfortunately, no one broke into this big formation, let alone discovered this wooden house. But until months passed, no one found out. This made them even more reluctant to fight each other and began to want to find a way to leave. But it was 500 years later that they ushered in the second wave of people. In addition to wondering why longevity has not come to an end, they also put all their energy on how to attract people to come over. But still found nothing. Until a few decades ago, the horse suddenly appeared in the courtyard. Thinking that this secret realm might be opened once in 500 years, the two of them planned to use this horse to bring people here when the secret realm was opened again, and they agreed that the person coming would be a female cultivator. He would be possessed by Luo Yanran's golden elixir, and if the male cultivator came, he would be possessed by Wanjianren. After such discussion, the two of them tried every means to turn the horse into a spiritual horse, so that its intelligence could be unlocked so that it could better understand what they meant. It was precisely because of this that Luo Yanran knew that the secret realm they were in was actually among the fragments. Needless to say, Zuyun also knew what happened next. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart that things are so confusing. If he hadn't suddenly had a whim in Nanfangfang City 10 years ago and thought about including the horse in the Diwu glazed mirror, it wouldn't have happened now. And from Luo Yanran's words just now, we learned that as soon as the horse came in, it appeared in the small wooden house. In this way, the key to this fragment lies in that wooden house. He pretended to be curious and asked, "Senior, what is in the wooden house that traps you?" "There is a sky fire in the alchemy room." He doesn't know what unexpected treasures there are in this wooden house. This is the fact that he cares about. It's just that he still can't figure out which part of the immortal mansion this secret space belongs to. Back garden? Luo Yanran didn't take it seriously. There's nothing in that room. It looks like a woodshed, but there are some weird tools. Tool. Zhu Yun's eyes suddenly lit up, which meant that this room must have some use. It should be a tool. Anyway, I haven't seen it before. Hearing this, Zhu Yun became more and more sure, and thought that after finding Ergu, he would take him here to have a look. At this time, Meng Wei suddenly said, I can already feel that the magic weapon of my destiny is less than 10 miles away from us. Zhu Yun immediately cheered up, and Luo Yanran stopped talking, as if he couldn't wait to see Ergu. At this time, Mu Qingxin observed for a long time in the small formation. She had hurriedly resisted Luo Yanran's attack before, but she didn't notice where Wang Jianren's golden elixir had gone. Her eyes were all on Jian Tianming, thinking about it. Kill her or save her. But he didn't realize that the horse's big black eyes were filled with a different light. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 165. After determining the direction, Zhu Yun controlled Zhao Kamang to accelerate and run wildly, but at this time, his spiritual power had only recovered more than 10%. Finally they saw several figures. But after Zhao Kamang accelerated, the noise became louder. Not only did he hear footsteps, but he also brought up billowing smoke and dust. He was immediately discovered by Big Dog and others. A monster is coming. The big dog gave a low growl and hurriedly took the 3 people around him to hide behind a haystack. But Zhu Yun had locked onto them early. Although they were far away and couldn't see their faces clearly, Meng Wei's induction of the natal magic weapon was not wrong. She was very sure that Ergu was among them. He even said anxiously, I only brought 2 dogs in. I wonder if the people around him are holding him hostage. Hearing this, Zhu Yun became even more anxious. Zhao Kamang's speed suddenly increased again, and he turned around and rushed towards the haystack. Chen Hua's expression changed and he said in shock, the monster discovered us, and there are 2 people on the monster's back. Could it be Huang Lei and Huang Meng from Wang Xian sect? It's over. Ye Xianming immediately turned pale and said, could it be that they just resented me for not leaving with me? Or did they encounter some trouble and want to rob me of the pills? Whether it is or not, it doesn't matter anymore. Through the gaps in the grass, the big dog saw that the monster was moving faster and faster, and said immediately, everyone, hurry up and eat the disguise pill. You can't even be confused them. After saying that, he took the lead in stuffing the elixir he had prepared into his mouth, and the other 3 people also swallowed it one after another. Ergu was seriously injured by Ye Xianming before, but he recovered with Ye Xuanming's help. Naturally, he traveled with the 3 of them, and even received a disguise pill. Old Ye, protect the 2 dogs. If the person who comes is an enemy rather than a friend, Huazi and I will deal with it. Feeling the muscles on his body and face twisting and twisting, the big dog couldn't care less and quickly ordered Ye Xianming. I know, I can't fight, so protecting myself shouldn't be a problem. Ye Xianming said, taking the 2 dogs to distance themselves from them, and at the same time holding some defensive talismans in his hands. Ergu held the dark red knife tightly in his hand. Although he is not strong enough, with the power of a knife, as long as he has the opportunity to stab a foundation stage to death, it is not a problem. After the arrangement was made, the big dog stared at the direction in which the monster was charging, while Chen Hua also quickly dodged to the haystack not far away with sword steps. As long as the big dog takes action, he will be waiting for the opportunity. While being prepared, De Go and Chen Hua couldn't calm down at all. In addition to the weird feeling on their faces, some parts of their bodies felt swollen and empty, making them extremely uncomfortable. Chen Hua secretly cursed in his heart, the transsexual elixir refined by Lao Ye was really, humming magical. As for the big dog, although he felt unhappy, he also knew that this was a helpless solution. He tightened the long sword in his hand and decided to take a stance first. Otherwise, the daughter's pregnancy will definitely affect the speed of his sword. After more than 10 breaths, the distance had shortened, and Zuyun and Mengwei finally saw the figures clearly. Both of them looked strange, but after all, they couldn't see the expression on the other's face. When he rushed here, Mengwei had already said that his natal magical weapon was on the body of a person a little far away. So their eyes have always been fixed on Ye Xianming and Ergu, who are a little further away. But as time has passed, these two people have completely transformed into women, and they are dressed in ordinary men's clothes, nondescript and extremely weird. Although Zuyun's spiritual power was not yet full, his spiritual knowledge arrived first, and he immediately felt that the three of them were only in the early stages of foundation building, and the other one was only in the Qi training stage. To be on the safe side, he asked Zhao Kamang to stop from a distance. Mengwei, what's going on? Where is Ergu? Mengwei's surprised eyes fell on the natal magical weapon in Ergu's hand. Before he could answer, Luo Yanran in his sleeves said in surprise, "Ha ha ha, not bad, there are 4 women. Xiu, which one should I choose?" After the words fell, the golden elixir light quickly rushed out from the sleeves, and while flying towards Ergu, he said in surprise, "The aura of the female cultivator in the Qi refining stage makes me feel quite comfortable, so I'll choose you." Among the 4 people in the group, except for Ye Xianming, how had they ever seen such magical powers? Not only did De Go and Ergo recognize Mengwei on the monster's back, but together with Chen Hua, the 3 of them also recognized Zuyun's voice. "Little Wish. Little Wish. Wish Yun." All 3 of them spoke at the same time, but what came out was an unfamiliar female voice. At the same time, just a little further away, Ye Xianming saw that Luo Yanran's golden elixir was about to rush towards Ergu, so he smashed out all the talismans in his hand. This was Ye Xianming's ability to save his life, but Luo Yanran was unable to sustain his spiritual power, and the golden elixir was blocked in front of Ergu, unable to make any progress. Zuyun was stunned, wondering when he had met these 3 strange female cultivators, but then he heard Mengwei's slightly sour words, "Zuyun, you seem to be very beautiful and blessed. You brought these 3 female cultivators here." Ye Xianming had no idea about this extremely weird scene at this time. When he saw Ergu froze on the spot, he couldn't help shouting urgently, "Ergu, that's the golden elixir in the elixir formation stage. He wants to possess you, so why don't you do it quickly, click back." Luo Yanran, who was trying to break through the talisman defense with all his strength, stopped immediately when he heard the familiar name, and turned to Mengwei and said loudly, "Wei, didn't you say Ergu is a man? No wonder the breath on his body is so familiar to me. It turns out that it is Ergu who has learned the Qi refining method of Yaluo sect." Ye Xianming was also dumbfounded, and then he realized that it was Mengwei on the back of the monster. For a moment, he felt that he had kicked a big iron plate, and he was immediately at a loss. He couldn't help thinking that if he could escape today, he must roll back to Peeper Realm without stopping. But as soon as this thought came up, he heard Zuyun behind Mengwei speak. "Ergu, is it you?" Mengwei was also at a loss at this time. He was in the 8th level of Qi refining, and he had the breath of Yaluo Qi refining method on his body. In addition, at this time, he was holding his own life weapon in his hand. There is no doubt that this must be Ergu. But he couldn't understand why she turned into a female cultivator out of nowhere. Looking at the bulging chest, she looked quite real. "Xiaozu, it's me." Ergu couldn't help but shed tears, his voice was extremely excited. But in the eyes of everyone, Ergu at this time was more like an ordinary woman who was bullied, crying so hard that her face turned pale, and I felt pity for her. "Master, please come back first." Seeing Ergu trying to come out from behind the defensive talisman, Mengwei was afraid that there would be any accidents, so he hurriedly said to Luo Yanran. Luo Yanran also knew that it was not appropriate at this time. Although she was also known as a demon woman and looked like a shrew when she was angry, She was also very principled in dealing with people. Otherwise, it would be impossible to bring out such a trustworthy Mengwei. After seeing the golden light fly back into Mengwei's sleeves, Ye Xianming breathed a sigh of relief and whispered to Ergu, "Ergu, do you know that demon, young palace master Meng?" At this time, Daegu and Chen Hua were silent, and Ye Xianming was still afraid that Ergu would have an accident. After all, he didn't know Zuyun. Ergu's eyes were filled with tears and he smiled sweetly, which gave Ye Xianming goosebumps all over his body. "Old Ye, I was brought to the secret realm by the young palace master." At this time, Zuyun also turned over and got off Zhao Kamang's back and walked towards Ergu. When he stood in front of Ergu, Zuyun also found the familiar brilliance in his eyes and confirmed that this was the good brother who grew up with him wearing open crotch pants. He subconsciously wanted to give him a bear hug, but reason told him not to do so. "Ergu, I miss you so much," Zuyun said in a daze. Ergu showed a charming smile, "Me too." As soon as he finished speaking, two more figures came running over. "Xiaozu, I miss you too." "Zuyun, me too." "Who are you?" Zuyun turned around in confusion, and the tone sounded very familiar, but he couldn't remember it for a while. "I'm Chen Hua." "He's Daegu." As they spoke, the two didn't stop at all, and Zuyun's face changed drastically in an instant. He subconsciously wanted to use the steps of Chang Shengju, but Chen Hua's ghostly sword steps were not inferior to his, and he hugged him first. Then Daegu also hugged over, with a pair of strong arms, tightly holding Zuyun's neck. Zuyun's face turned pale with fear, and he didn't have time to be happy. Ergu behind him suddenly hugged him from the back. In this way, he was squeezed in the middle by the three people, and he almost couldn't breathe. The three people were overjoyed and completely forgot that they were all girls. "Hey, why is there a sour smell?" At this time, Luo Yanran suddenly flew out from his sleeves and floated in front of Mengwei. Mengwei's face suddenly became embarrassed, and he said unhappily, "Master, those three are all men, did you misunderstand something?" When Daegu and Chen Hua's sword steps were performed, Mengwei immediately recognized them and naturally guessed their identities. "Heh, men." Luo Yanran said disdainfully, "Wei, are you interested in that real man?" The so-called real man naturally refers to Zuyun. The Yaluo sect only prohibits male cultivators from going to Yaluo Mountain, and does not prohibit disciples from finding Taoist partners. Otherwise, how could the mate of the holy object give birth to Mukingzin? Mengwei's face was hot, and she wanted to curse that a dog can't spit out ivory. But she could only say in a disapproving tone, "How could that little brat be in my eyes?" Luo Yanran left a light word and flew back into Mengwei's sleeves. "Your eyes betray your heart." Did it? Mengwei didn't know, and she didn't understand the relationship between men and women. She just felt that Zuyun was much more pleasing to the eye than others. Maybe he rescued her when Wan Laojin was about to flirt with her in Magian Cliff. Maybe Zuyun gave her a total of 5 longevity pills. Maybe he specially arranged for Sun Suanhua to escort her all the way to Yezhu. Maybe it was possible that she wanted to be a person who valued her word and was afraid that she owed him. Finally, Zuyun's difficult voice came, pulling her thoughts back. "You guys are killing me. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 166. Only then did Big Dog and the other three people remember that they had each become a female cultivator. The feeling of bulging in their chests made them really uncomfortable, let alone hugging Zuyun so hard just now. They all relaxed in embarrassment and looked at Zuyun with strange expressions. Zuyun suddenly said anxiously, "What are you looking at?" "I mean Ergu has something hard that hits me." The eyes of Big Go and Chen Hua instantly fell on Ergo. Ergo scratched his head. What are you doing looking at me like this? I am, just like you. Ye Xianming, who was still watching and could feel their brotherhood, felt an unreasonable fear in his heart. He had a bad feeling. Zuyun was extremely speechless. Meng Wei also said quietly, what Zuyun said should be my knife. Hearing this, Ergo quickly threw it towards Meng Wei like a hot potato in his hand. But Meng Wei was on Zhao Kamang's back, and she was powerless at the moment, so it was difficult for her to sit still. How could she catch the inaccurately thrown knife? The knife fell from Zhao Kamang's side, and Ergo said softly, Palace Master Meng, are you injured? Meng Wei was able to accept her current situation calmly, or it could be said that she had experienced a lot and was somewhat used to it. I met Jian Tianming again, but she didn't feel well either. As she said that, she looked at Zuyun again. It could be said that among everyone present, she was the only one who knew clearly that the beam of light was caused by Zuyun. But her reason told her not to say it at this time. Although she reunited with her master Luo Yanran 500 years later, things have changed now. On the contrary, only Zuyun makes her feel more familiar. By the way, why are you with them? And how come all the good ones turned into female nuns? Meng Wei glanced at De Go and Chen Hua, they were equally beautiful women. He also felt that it was very magical. If he hadn't just recognized them from their different footwork, she wouldn't be able to tell who was who. As for the other one, she could also guess that it was Ye Xianming who didn't intervene in the fight before and didn't leave, but she didn't know his identity yet. Zuyun just stood quietly. Anyway, they have found the big dog and the second dog now. They have enough time to reminisce about the past. It is more important to exchange the news in the secret realm first. Ergo was also very relaxed at this time and said, after I separated from you, I went to find Yaloo grass alone. I had no clue at first. But then I thought about it, wasn't the technique I practiced the Yaloo chi refining method? I thought to myself the names are all the same, so I used the spiritual power in my body and used your natal magic weapon to actually sense the Yaloo grass. When I was about to look for it, I was accidentally injured by Lao Yet. Ergo said briefly, and Meng Wei and Zuyun's eyes fell on Ye Xianming at the same time. Ye Xianming said with a surprised look on his face, are you looking for Yaloo grass? Why didn't you tell me earlier? As he said that, he took out a jade box from his arms and opened the lid. It was a dark and inconspicuous Yaloo grass. Ergo also widened his eyes, and then said at a loss of whether to laugh or cry, I was knocked unconscious by you, and I haven't recovered my breath yet, so I don't have time to talk. Ye Xianming seemed to mutter in a low voice, you can't blame me for this, I haven't even asked Xiaobai what his real name is. He had heard Ergo call Chen Huahua and senior brother Chen before, so he knew that both he and Big Go must have changed their names. Everyone was speechless, but Meng Wei said, now that you have the Yaloo grass, you should practice quickly and see if you can break through the 9th level of Qi training. It just so happens that this place is considered safe for the time being, and I also need to recover. Although there are many of them, only De Go and Chen Hua are truly at full combat strength. Even Zuyun still needs to recover his spiritual power. Fortunately, judging from the current situation, the 2 early stages of foundation building are enough to protect the law, not to mention the monster transformed by Zhao Kameng, whose strength is comparable to that of the late stage of foundation building. Ye Xianming was still a little nervous. It wasn't that he was afraid that Big Dog and the other 3 would turn against him, but that there was a big shot in the demonic world around him from 500 years ago. How could he not panic? After thinking about it, he took the initiative and said to Meng Wei, Palace Master Meng, I see that you are also seriously injured. Do you want to help you take a look? Make some suitable elixirs for you to take. Meng Wei's eyes showed surprise, and he asked curiously, do you know the art of alchemy? As soon as he said this, Ye Xianming immediately became energetic. He patted his chest, trying to boost his self-confidence, but the numb and itchy feeling in his hands made his expression freeze again. He could only smile and rub his hands and said, "Master Meng, have you ever heard of the Yazhudan demon hundreds of years ago?" Meng Wei frowned slightly, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he finally searched for some relevant memories in his mind, and said with surprise and joy, "It's the guy from Kixing sect who missed the wedding day because he was addicted to alchemy, and finally the bride married his cousin out of anger." Alchemy. Ye Xianming, who had just come back to his senses, almost wanted to say something like a good man, but he quickly swallowed it when he said it. "I thought you would remember the legend of my original elixir recipe. How come a big shot like you, who is in the alchemy stage, only remembers the only stain in my alchemy career?" On the side, there was also a surge of spiritual power. Ergo was refining his chi and almost went crazy while practicing. Zuyun was originally using the spirit stone to restore his spiritual power. If he hadn't been strong-willed and had a deep foundation of 5 spiritual roots, he would not have absorbed his spiritual power into Zi Mansion. The 2 people in charge of guarding the law, Daegu and Chen Hua, were also laughing, their breasts were shaking. Anyway, they couldn't even hold their swords firmly. It was Luo Yanran's voice that broke the awkward atmosphere at this time. "Are you Ye Xianming?" While speaking, the golden elixir emerged and quickly rushed to Ye Xuanming's front. "Luo, Palace Master Luo, it's me." Ye Xianming trembled all over, and his tongue was about to get tied. After all, he was the leader of the demonic path, and there was another golden elixir in front of him, how could he not panic? "It's been so many years, and you are still alive. Didn't die in Peeper Realm." Luo Yanran naturally knew more things, and his focus would be more on Ye Xuanming's ability to refine pills. As long as you are a cultivator, you can't do without pills. 500 years ago, Ye Xianming was still quite famous. Later, he left behind a bold statement and disappeared. It is said that he went to Peeper Realm to pursue a higher level of alchemy. "That, Palace Master Luo," Ye Xianming said tremblingly, "if you have any questions, let me help Princess Meng diagnose them first." He knew very well that any cultivator in Yeazhu who was at the peak of the late Jindan stage would be very interested in Peeper Realm. It was a more advanced place and could also obtain greater opportunities. Apart from anything else, the richness of the spiritual energy alone was not comparable to Yeazhu. Luo Yanran stopped talking and flew back into Meng Wei's sleeves. What Ye Xianming said was right. Even if he knew something about Peeper Realm now, he was powerless to go there. And Zuyun, who was not far away, heard the 3 words Ye Xianming, and his mind couldn't help but recall what Sun Suanhua said to him when they left. "My master's surname is Ye, and my name is Suanhua." That is to say, Ye Xianming is also a member of the 7 Stars sect. Just as he was about to absorb the spirit stone in his hand and ask again, Meng Wei seemed to have a spiritual connection with him, but he asked what he was thinking first. "Then do you know Ye Xuanhua?" "Ye Xuanhua?" Ye Xianming searched in his mind and shook his head, "No." Meng Wei suddenly realized that these 2 people were not of the same generation. Maybe they were of the same generation, but Ye Xianming left Yeazhu a long time ago. Ye Xuanhua was less than 200 years old. "Then you can help me see what kind of elixir will heal quickly." Meng Wei was no longer entangled, but Zuyun didn't know Ye Xuanming's background, and couldn't help but think in his heart, should I find a chance to interrogate him later to see if he was a fake 7-star sect member? With this idea in mind, Zuyun decided to recover his ability as soon as possible, and he didn't hesitate to spend spiritual stones one by one. On this side, Meng Wei hesitated for a moment, but still let Ye Xianming put his hand on his wrist. After all, Ye Xianming is now a genuine female cultivator, and there is no relationship between men and women. After a while, Ye Xianming frowned and said, "Young Palace Master Meng, Your situation is quite complicated. Meng Wei said calmly, why? First, young Palace Master Meng should have used your sect's unique skill, the disintegration of the Dark Luo method, several times. Meng Wei was surprised, you know all this. Ye Xianming sighed in a low voice, young Palace Master Meng, I thought that only one longevity pill would solve your problem, but I didn't expect that you took the longevity pill not long after each time you used the disintegration of the Dark Luo method. If it was made of different spiritual medicines, it would be fine, but you just used the 10,000-year-old blood ginseng. Ye Xianming was telling the truth. In fact, he still had the longevity pill on him, and he planned to take it out for Meng Wei to take to replenish his life. Because he saw the problem with Meng Wei at the first glance. But now, the longevity pill is not so easy to solve. What's the problem? Ye Xianming said in a deep voice, epidium poison. Meng Wei was very surprised, the longevity pill also has pidium poison. If it is a pill, it is poisonous. Ye Xuanming's expression was solemn, and he said, it's just that the poison of some pills can be reduced as much as possible through the refining techniques and the temperature. Of course, the main reason for the pidium poison in your body is that the interval between swallowing the same longevity pill is too short, which is a taboo. Then this palace is hopeless. As he said, Meng Wei couldn't help but glance at Zhu Yun, but found that he was immersed in his mind, madly absorbing the spiritual power of the spirit stone. Ye Xianming pondered for a moment and said, it can be saved, but it will take a long time to completely eliminate these pidium poisons. Let's let Master Meng recover his strength first. Meng Wei didn't know that he had such a big problem at first. When he heard that he could recover his strength, he readily agreed. But he didn't expect Ye Xianming to look at Ergu, who was practicing again. But you need at least one Yaluo grass. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 167. Yaluo grass. Meng Wei was slightly stunned. He knew that Ergu had a Yaluo grass, and this one was given by Ye Xianming in front of him. Can't we use other spiritual medicines? Yaluo grass is Ergu's only hope for breakthrough at present, and when she stayed in Yaluo sect with Sun Xuanhua, she knew that he could always find a substitute when he lacked spiritual medicine for alchemy. Meng Wei felt that since Sun Xuanhua could do it, then Ye Xianming, as an alchemy demon, could definitely do it. But Ye Xianming shook his head and said, young Master Meng, your injury was caused by the Yaluo disintegration technique. Only the Yaluo grass, which has the same medicinal power as the Yaluo sect, can make your blood flow smoothly again and restore your strength. Meng Wei vaguely guessed what Ye Xianming meant and asked in an uncertain tone, then let's find another one. If this can solve the problem, how can I be so sad? Ye Xianming was also quite helpless and said, Yaluo grass is different from other spiritual medicines. There can only be one Yaluo grass within 1,000 miles. The world is dominated by spiritual energy, and there is very little demonic energy. Meng Wei understood. No wonder Yaluo grass, which is useless to ordinary cultivators, is extremely rare. I used to think that those treasure-hunting cultivators were unwilling to deal with their Yaluo sect, but now I finally understand. But there is only one Yaluo grass. It stands to reason that if she uses it, it can reflect greater value. After all, even if Ergu breaks through the 9th level of Qi refining, it can only be regarded as better than nothing for the overall strength improvement of them. But Meng Wei is different. She can recover to the peak of foundation building. The conversation between the two attracted the attention of Daegu and Chen Hua at the same time. Compared with Ergu, they didn't have a good impression of Meng Wei. And from the words just now, they also knew that if Ergu wanted to break through the realm, Yaluo grass was a must. They were more worried about Ergu. The few people who came out of Lingjian sect together had reached the early stage of foundation building, and only Ergu stayed in the Qi refining stage. They wanted to say that the Yaloo grass should be used by Urga first, but the situation at this time was simply impossible to open their mouths, or it was not their turn to say it at all. Because they also considered Zuyun's feelings. At this time, Zuyun finally recovered all his spiritual power. He suddenly opened his eyes and swept the whole audience with his bright eyes. Finally, it fell on Ye Xianming. Are you from the Seven Stars sect? How to prove it? Ye Xianming was immediately happy. Why should I prove it to you? He is also a proud person, although he is a little afraid of death. It can be seen that Zuyun is only in the initial stage of foundation building, and he is not afraid at all. Even if Mengwei and Luo Yanran support him, Mengwei has no strength, and he can prepare in advance. He believes that even if Luo Yanran attacks him with a golden elixir, he believes that he will have no problem protecting himself. Mainly for the sake of Daegu and others, he thinks that although they are young, they are really good. It's just that I have been talking here for so long, and he actually asks such a ridiculous question. Zuyun said without hesitation, because I am also from the Seven Stars sect. As soon as this was said, everyone was stunned. Except for Luo Yanran, including Mengwei, they all knew clearly that Zuyun came from the Spirit Sword sect. How could it be related to the Seven Stars sect? Little did he know that after Zhang Tianyuan's death, the attitude of the Spirit Sword sect that he didn't care about anything made him completely give up on the Spirit Sword sect. On the contrary, although Sun Suanhua had an inexplicable attitude towards him at first, he was also determined to teach him all the 7 skills. Although he later knew that Sun Suanhua was using him, he never had the intention to harm him from beginning to end. This is why Zuyun later regarded Sun Suanhua as his real master. Since he was a member of the Seven Stars sect, then as his apprentice, he was also a disciple. Ye Xianming obviously didn't believe it, and looked Zuyun up and down and said, not everyone can pretend to be from the Seven Stars sect. Look at the way you use the sword, do you think it looks like it? The air was full of gunpowder. However, Zuyun laughed, shook his right hand, and there was a talisman between his 2 fingers. Golden light talisman. Ye Xianming recognized it immediately, which surprised Zuyun. These were all prepared by Zuyun when he was in the Nine Suns Tower. Boy, you can think of yourself as a member of the Seven Stars sect with a primary talisman? Are you a member of the Zhaofu sect? That's a traitor of the Seven Stars sect. Speaking of the Zhaofu sect, Ye Xianming's tone also turned cold. When he went to Peeper Realm, the Seven Stars sect was in turmoil, but with the Zhaofu Hall, it could at least protect itself. But who knew that after he came back, the Zhaofu Hall had already established its own sect, and the Seven Stars sect was completely destroyed. I can also make pills. Zuyun took out the intermediate pill furnace that he had eliminated from another storage bag and placed it in front of him. Ye Xianming raised his eyebrows and sneered, are you talking to me about making pills? Can holding a pill furnace prove that you can make pills? He looked at it with disdain, took out a porcelain bottle from his arms, poured out a red blood pill, and threw it directly at Zuyun. Do you know what kind of elixir this is? What kinds of spiritual medicines are used to make it? After Zuyun took it, Ye Xianming asked with confidence. As for the other methods of the Seven Star sect, he is average. But refining elixir? Zuyun put the red blood pill, which is as big as a thumbnail, in his palm with a solemn expression. Feeling the surging blood energy on it, Zuyun could not recognize it. Haha, don't you know? This is my own red blood pill. Ye Xianming was extremely proud. Zuyun was stunned for a moment, and then he felt that he had gotten into a corner. There are thousands of elixirs in the world. Since we are competing to refine elixirs, what is the use of naming them? He made an arc at the corner of his mouth and placed the red blood pill under the tip of his nose. Are you scared by my ability to create self-made elixirs? Do you think that the name of my elixir demon came randomly? Ye Xianming kept sarcastic, feeling that this had given Big Dog and the others enough face. Red sun grassroots, the blood of fire monsters, and the bark of agarwood trees. At this time, Zuyun suddenly raised his head and spit out 3 materials that could be used to make elixirs. Suddenly Ye Xuanming's mouth froze. Everyone has weird expressions. Because they knew that these 2 people would definitely not be able to fight, they were happy to watch the show. Anyway, being idle is idle. But obviously, Ye Xianming seemed to have seen a ghost. If my guess is correct, the main ingredients of this red blood pill are these 3, right? After hearing Zuyun speak, everyone suddenly realized. Even though they don't know how to make elixirs, they can guess the main ingredient just by smelling the fragrance. This is really amazing. There are many alchemists in Yezhou, but basically they all have ready-made alchemy recipes that have been circulated for who knows how many years. You can get the name of a master by improving an elixir recipe, let alone a genius like Ye Xianming who can create his own elixir. But at this time, Zuyun also surprised them greatly. You. Ye Xianming became a little incoherent. What are you doing? Zuyun held his head high and smiled. To make alchemy, you must first know the properties of various materials. If the introduction to pharmacology hadn't been placed on the stone cabinet of Diwu glazed mirror, Zuyun would have wanted to take it out and slap him in the face. Are you really a member of my 7-star sect? In the entire Yezhou, only the disciples of my 7-star sect who are studying alchemy will learn the basics of pharmacology first. Zuyun didn't know these rules, so he threw the red blood pill back and said lightly, although the pill is good, you can't be greedy. Everyone listened with great interest and couldn't bear to interrupt. Especially Big Dog and others who each have a bottle of red blood pill on their bodies. Ye Xianming frowned, and Zuyun spoke again. Red sun herb is a fire-based elixir, and you adding the blood of a fire-based monster is just adding fuel to the fire. I know your purpose of adding agarwood bark is to neutralize the fire power, but you ignored it. A little bit of demonic power in the blood of demonic beasts. Ye Xianming screamed, boy, are you really good at making pills? How could he not know the disadvantages of the elixir he refined? In fact, he has a better red blood pill, but the fire-type monster has been replaced by a fire-type spiritual beast. Since it is a spiritual beast, there is naturally no demonic power in it. But compared to monster beasts, spiritual beasts are really hard to find. These red blood pills were also refined after he arrived in Yezhou. After seeing Ye Xuanming's admission, Zuyun grinned again and took out a few cups of spiritual wine. Except Ergu who was still practicing, each person shared a cup. Chen Hua smiled, opened the mud seal and started drinking. The Big Dog glared at him, meaning that we are here to guard and protect the Dharma, how can we drink? Chen Hua ignored it, drank the wine in one gulp, wiped his mouth casually, and shouted to Ye Xianming, old Ye, Zuyun's wine tastes better than yours. He was deliberately angry with Ye Xianming, because at this moment he completely remembered Ye Xuanming's excited reaction when he heard from him that someone knew the 7 skills of the 7-star sect. Now it seems that there is a good show to watch. This is brewed using my 7-star sect's brewing method. Ye Xianming also took a sip and tasted it immediately, feeling extremely horrified. He even agreed with Chen Hua that this wine was indeed better than his. Of course, this also has something to do with Ye Xuanming's lack of interest in learning other than alchemy. Unlike Zuyun, the purpose of learning winemaking at that time was to find the murderer of Zhang Tianyuan, so he was naturally attentive. Zuyun looked at Ye Xianming with a smile and said, do you believe it now? Believe, I already believe it completely. Ye Xianming came back to his senses, excited, nodding like mashed garlic. But Zuyun's face darkened and he said in a deep voice, but I don't believe you are from the 7-star section, otherwise, how could you not know Ye Xuanhua? Ye Xianming was dumbfounded, he really didn't know him. And hundreds of years have passed, and he has nothing to prove his identity. Finally, Meng Wei, who had seen enough of the drama, helped him out. Zuyun, he is indeed from the Seven-Star sect, but he is not of the same generation as your master, so naturally he doesn't know him. Zuyun wanted to say something else, but a solid wave of spiritual power suddenly came from his side. Everyone turned their heads to look, just in time to see Ergu shouting incessantly. Above his head, there was a small vortex faintly hovering, absorbing the spiritual power in the air. Everyone suddenly had only one thought in their mind: this was Ergu's breakthrough. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 168. Meng Wei exclaimed, "What's going on?" He has been trapped in the 8th level of Qi refining for several years. After bringing Ergo back to Yaluo sect, the initial training was quite smooth. With her personal guidance, Ergo quickly reached the 8th level of Qi refining in just a few months. But in the following years, there was no progress at all, and Meng Wei once thought that it was the relationship between two dogs and three spiritual roots. But when Yaluo sect was at its peak, there were countless disciples of Sanligan, and they had never been on the 8th level Qi refining card for so many years. No matter what method Meng Wei used, the bottleneck in Ergu's body remained indifferent. Just as the secret realm was about to open, Meng Wei thought about whether he should try it with Yaluo grass. At this time, Luo Yanran's voice sounded leisurely. Yaluo's Qi refining method is originally exclusive to female cultivators. As a man, he naturally cannot practice the 9th level. Meng Wei was puzzled and wanted to ask what the reason was, but then he heard Luo Yanran's voice was strange and he said with some uncertainty, "It's possible that he suddenly turned into a girl's body, and the meridians in his body also changed accordingly." Change, this is the natural breakthrough, right? This. Everyone has a big question mark on their faces. As for Meng Wei, he was extremely speechless. Ye Xianming said weakly, "I made this pill unintentionally by playing around, but I can tell you with certainty and responsibility that we are real now, no different from female cultivators." At this time, there was only one thought in everyone's mind, that is, Ye Xianming was worthy of the name of Dan Demon. But fortunately, Big Dog and the others already knew that the effect of this medicine could only last for a month. After a month they can become men again. What needs to grow grows out, what needs to shrink shrinks back. You should be happy. Seeing the inexplicable expressions in everyone's eyes, Ye Xianming couldn't help but shudder and quickly changed the subject. Meng Wei's eyes lit up, and his eyes were filled with brilliance. Because in this way, Yaluo grass can be used by her to restore her realm. While De Go and Chen Hua were surrounding the two dogs and beaming with joy, Ye Xianming quickly ran back to Meng Wei and said, "Palace Master Meng Xiao, I can now temper the medicinal power of Yaluo grass for you, but..." As he spoke, his eyes focused on Zuyun. "Speak directly." Meng Wei and Zuyun said in unison. The two looked at each other, and Meng Wei turned around in panic. Fortunately, Ye Xianming's attention was not here, but said, "To temper the medicine, you need a cauldron, but I didn't bring it with me, so I want to borrow his cauldron." It turned out to be just this request. Zuyun said nonchalantly, "The furnace is right there, you can use it as you wish." Meng Wei personally said that he was also a member of the Qixing sect and had been able to protect Ergu for so many years. Zuyun chose to believe in Meng Wei's character. Not to mention that in order to take care of Ergu, he would give him his own magical weapon for self-defense. Is this something that ordinary people can do? Furthermore, he already has mastered Zhu Yang's high-level furnace, so this intermediate level is of little use. After getting Zuyun's agreement, Ye Xianming breathed a sigh of relief. As an alchemist, how could he not carry the cauldron with him? The matter was so important that he was afraid that these people would forget their loyalty in an instant. However, Just as Ye Xianming threw the yellow grass into Zhu Yun's Zongji furnace and took out some spiritual wood to light the flames, his breathing suddenly became rapid. This furnace. She glanced at Zhu Yun secretly and found that he had not noticed her, and a look of excitement immediately flashed in his eyes. And at this time, in that big formation, Mu Qingxin finally decided not to kill Jian Tianming, not because she wanted to let Jian Tianming go, but because she had a better and more brilliant idea. Jian Tianming lived up to the name of Tianming. When the formation broke apart, he was able to escape the huge flow of spiritual power because he was lying on the ground. What did you feed me? The dying Jian Tianming was turned over by Mu Qingxin, looking up at the sky of the secret realm, and asked with a hint of rebellious tone. A hint of coldness flashed through Mu Qingxin's sweet smile. This is an excellent elixir for healing. Don't you feel the pure spiritual power in it? Jian Tianming stopped talking. Of course she could feel it, and she even had the strength to ask questions. This was because the spiritual power was absorbed by the Danshan and began to fill her veins. But she didn't believe that Mu Qingxin had such good intentions. But she also knew that since Mu Qingxin didn't answer, she wouldn't be able to get an answer if she asked again. Since she has swallowed it, let's rest assured and recover first, and then kill her directly when the opportunity arises. With this thought in mind, Jian Tianming slowly closed his eyes and began to refine and absorb this puppet-controlling soul pill with all his strength. Seeing this reaction that was like accepting her fate, Mu Qingxin stood up with satisfaction. However, when she turned her head, she suddenly met a pair of big eyes, which shocked her. Brute! Mu Qingxin patted her chest and snorted coldly at the horse possessed by Wang Jianren's golden elixir. If you hadn't run fast enough and I didn't have a mount. She didn't know that Wang Jianren's golden elixir and the horse were completely integrated. In other words, this is a horse in the elixir formation stage. However, when he broke through from the wooden house town, almost all his spiritual power was exhausted, and at the same time, he was carried away by Zhu Yun's chaos palm, completely depleting his spiritual power. If it was an ordinary horse, Wang Jianren could hide in it for several hours, wait for the recovery of spiritual power, and then he could leave the golden elixir again and find another cultivator to possess. But this horse stayed in the secret realm for 50 years, and under the guidance of Wang Jianren and Luo Yanran, it ate grass and spiritual medicine full of spiritual power. Therefore, this is a spiritual horse, and its spiritual power is even stronger than the golden elixir that rushed into its stomach. Because of this, Wang Jianren's golden elixir was firmly suppressed in the horse's body. Unable to recover spiritual power, it is impossible to snatch the horse's consciousness and completely gain control of the horse's body. Luo Yanran didn't know that his joke about thousands of people riding on it was actually right. Ah, I'm so angry. You're just in the early stage of foundation building, and you dare to look at me like this. When I find a way to get out, I will definitely extract your soul and refine your spirit, and turn you into a human sword. No, I should turn you into a sword man. Wang Jianren roared madly, unable to control himself, but unfortunately, no one except the horse could hear his voice. On the contrary, the horse felt that there was an inexplicable voice in his body, which greatly affected his hearing and positioning. After thinking about it, he controlled a touch of spiritual power and suppressed it towards his stomach. Ah, 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 ah. Suddenly, Wang Jianren's golden elixir felt an extremely huge pressure, and he couldn't curse at all. The horse finally felt that the world was quiet, and turned back to the small courtyard where he had stayed for 50 years. It decided to figure out a question: why did Zhu Yun change such an ugly monster to ride on just now, instead of riding on itself? How come I am also a spirit beast? Mu Qingxin thought she had scolded the horse away, and was stunned. She was inexperienced and did not expect that the horse was a very rare spirit beast in Yeazhu. Especially when she saw the horse disappear in front of him, she immediately remembered that Zhu Yun also rushed into the small formation at that time. She and Meng Wei and others could not see what happened inside, and then saw him rushing out again. More importantly, after Zhu Yun came out, there was no light column on his body, so it was obvious that he had hidden the treasure related to the secret realm in it. When she thought of this, Mu Qingxin was instantly excited. She felt that Zhu Yun would definitely come back, so it was better to strike first. Concerning her own life experience and the whereabouts of her mother, Mu Qingxin did not hesitate and rushed into the small formation, only to find that there was a wooden house here. The formation that wrapped the wooden house was destroyed by Wang Jianren and Luo Yanran, and the door was wide open, and the inside was clear at a glance. Mu Qingxin thought that Zhu Yun might have hidden the treasure in the house, so she walked in immediately. The house was a bit simple, with some hay scattered in the corner by the door, which looked quite old. But the shelves against the wall were exquisitely carved, and they were countless times more advanced than the shelves in the alchemy room of Zhu Yangjianren. She walked over and took an object from the shelf. The handle made of unknown wood fit his palm very well, and there was also a warm touch, which made him very comfortable. Mu Qingxin pulled it out. The other end was soft and very tough. "Is this a whip for driving horses?" she murmured, raised her head and looked outside the house, just in time to meet the horse's eyes again. "Dare to look at me?" Remembering that she was frightened by the horse before, Mu Qingxin showed a grim smile on her face, and at the same time swung her right hand. One end of the whip slammed hard on the floor bricks, making a crisp sound that seemed to shake the soul. "Pa!" The horse outside the house actually knelt down on all four hooves, and at the same time, an inexplicable look of fear appeared in its eyes. Mu Qingxin's breathing suddenly became rapid. She originally just wanted to scare the horse, but she didn't expect that she would produce a kind of awe that even she couldn't understand by just swinging it casually. "So, this is a treasure?" Just hearing the sound can make the horse kneel down, so what if it is thrown on the horse's flattery? Mu Qingxin really wanted to try it, but she still held back. Looking back at the other objects on the shelf, her face suddenly became strange. There were small shovels as big as the palm of a hand, strange sabers as long as an arm, and even a nine-toothed rake. For the others, she didn't know how to describe them because she didn't recognize them at all. Mu Qingxin wanted to put all these things into the storage bag and take them back to let Master Zhu Yang recognize them. At least the horse whip in her hand has shown its extraordinary effect, so the things on the same shelf are naturally not bad. But what she didn't expect was that she was surprised to find that there was nothing that could be put into the storage bag. What's going on? In shock, footsteps suddenly came from outside the house. Mu Qingxin quickly clenched the whip in her hand, looked up, and saw Jian Tianming's expression was cold, and the temperature around him was slowly dropping. Feeling the pressure of the peak of the late stage of foundation building, which had almost recovered its spiritual power, Mu Qingxin was about to use the control method of the puppet soul technique, when the warm touch reminded her of the whip in her hand. She grinned and swung it suddenly. "No matter whether you are a human or a horse, if you dare to look at me like this, you will be punished by my whip." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 169. Crack. This was so fast that Mu Qingxin didn't hesitate. Facing Jian Tianming, who was at the peak of the late foundation building stage, she didn't care if it was a sneak attack or not. The whip was thrown on the stone tiles of the floor, and there was another crisp sound. The soul-shaking sound went straight to the Zifu in Jian Tianming's mind. Suddenly, the already bloodless Jian Tianming's face turned pale again, and he staggered back several steps. She was horrified. What a magic weapon this was, and how powerful it was. Even though he had been in the realm of Dan formation, he had never been exposed to it. if I were hit by this whip. Jian Tianming came here with the intention of using the power of the realm to suppress Mu Qingxin and then kill her. But I didn't expect that the other party would have such powerful means. Kneel down. When Mu Qingxin saw that Jian Tianming had indeed been whipped, he couldn't help but push further. She could even imagine the scene of Zuyun kneeling in front of her and being whipped. But what she hopes now is that Zuyun comes as late as possible, so that she will have enough time for Jian Tianming to swallow more puppet control soul pills and leave a deeper mark on his soul, so that she controls it even more easily. A murderous intent flashed through Jian Tianming's eyes again. For such a proud woman, the words kneel down were a humiliation for him. But after a moment, her knees slowly bent. Integrated with Sun Qinyang's memory, it tells her the meaning of being able to bend and stretch through the experience of a single person. Ha ha ha. Mu Qingxin laughed like crazy, her voice was extremely sharp. From today on, I, Mu Qingxin, am your master. And the horse between them has eyes that are sometimes confused and sometimes filled with sadness. The sad look was naturally affected by Wang Jianren, but that was all he could do. At this time, Zuyun and others are here. Ye Xianming is purifying the medicinal power of Yaluo grass, and the spiritual wood under the furnace is burning with blazing fire. Seeing how hard he was working, Zuyun wanted to go over and use Fen Tianyan to help control the heat. But after weighing the pros and cons, I gave up the idea and continued to talk to the three big dogs about their past experiences over the years. Meng Wei, with his back to Zhao Kamang, was sitting on the grass board, playing with his legs. Wei, what are your plans now? Luo Yanran suddenly said. Meng Wei blinked and asked, Master, do you want to hear the truth or a lie? She could hear the unwillingness in Luo Yanran's words, but even if Luo Yanran regained a body and his strength returned to its peak, what would happen? Wanjian Mountain still has dozens of pill formation stages. What about the truth? What about lies? Luo Yanran didn't know what Meng Wei was thinking, so she could only ask helplessly. The lie is that after I leave, my disciple plans to stay away from Yeazhu, hide his power and bide his time, and develop the Yaluo sect again. When the strength becomes stronger, he will use the strength of the entire sect to return to Yeazhu and compete with Wanjian Mountain. Luo Yanran seemed to take a deep breath and asked, what about the truth? The truth is the same. Luo Yanran was a little dazed, and then heard Meng Wei say, Wanjian Mountain is still the only one in Yeazhu. Even if my disciple wants to develop Yaluo sect again, he is afraid that his longevity will not be enough. Luo Yanran knew that Meng Wei was telling the truth. The development of a sect was not easy. After thousands of years of inheritance, the Yaluo sect ended up like this. After being silent for a long time, he said, the Magic Wheel sect was pushed back into the Zhuhao Mountains by the Haori section. What's going on now? Meng Wei frowned and said, Master, the Magic Wheel sect has retained some strength. As for how much it has recovered, I don't know. But if you want to cooperate with them, it is like seeking the skin of a tiger. Luo Yanran flew out the golden elixir and landed it at the level of Meng Wei's eyes, and said in a deep voice, Why, have you found the Magic Wheel sect? I haven't found it yet. He seemed not to dare to look at Luo Yanran. He turned his head slightly and looked at Ye Xianming, who was controlling the fire, and said, Master, Wanjianshan can fight with the Haori sect in a life and death fight, then do you think the Magic Wheel sect will treat us, master and disciple, as drowned dogs? Luo Yanran shouted loudly, he dares. The loud sound attracted everyone's attention at the same time, and they all looked towards him. But Luo Yanran didn't care and said sternly, if we, Yaluo sect, had not surrounded Wei to save Zhao and stormed the mountain gate of Haori sect, their elder Jidan would have died in the trap set by Li Chengan in all likelihood. Meng Wei also raised his voice and said, but master, you also said it was back then. What confidence do we have now? How could she not know? Because she was the one who took the people there herself. But a few years ago, she almost died in the hands of Elder Jinlun. It's not that Mengwei swallowed this bad breath, but it's that even if he breaks through to the pill formation stage after he goes out, he still can't compete with him. Not to mention the long term, but in the short term, she had no idea how long she could live. She has taken life and death lightly, and she naturally takes it lightly if there is some hatred. It's a pity that Luo Yanran doesn't know Mengwei's state of mind at this time, or let alone the impact of being locked up in a secret realm for 1500 years. She said fiercely, I have mastered the use of this holy object to some extent. When I can get out and reshape my body, I will identify this holy object with blood and become my master's magical weapon. When the time comes, the magic will, if Zone dares to rebel, I will bring them all into this secret realm. Although Zuyun was chatting with De Go and the others, when he suddenly heard Luo Yanran's words, he was shocked and stood up suddenly. He was completely sure that this secret realm was the fragment of the Dao-glazed mirror, which he had already regarded as something in his pocket. How could it be possible for Luo Yanran to obtain it? And, no surprise, this fragment is within the range of Zilang Peak. But when he thought of Zilang Peak, Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a headache. Because at that time, more than a dozen alchemy-forming people outside were all focused on him. Presumably Luo Yanran would not be able to find the fragments in this situation. Xiaozu, what's wrong with you? The big dog asked strangely. Without. Zuyun shook his head. Knowing that he was losing his temper, he quickly sat down. Just when he was about to find a reason to explain, Ye Xianming over there had already purified all the medicinal power of Yaluo grass. The flame under the furnace was extinguished instantly, and at the same time, under Ye Xuanming's control, the lid of the furnace was opened, and a dark pill flew out. Not only Zuyun and the others stopped talking, but Luo Yanran also calmed down and watched Ye Xianming bring the pill in front of him. Master Meng, you are lucky to have lived up to your destiny. Meng Wei's eyes still flashed with a hint of joy, and after taking it, his red lips slightly opened, thank you. Ye Xianming smiled and said, you're welcome, Master Meng. The secret realm is dangerous. If Ye wants to search for more elixirs in it, he will inevitably need to rely on Master Meng. You kid, you are very direct in your speech. Luo Yanran interrupted and flew back into Meng Wei's sleeves. Ye Xianming sneered twice and said, Mr. Meng, please take this medicine first, and then you can prepare the pill according to the condition of your recovery. Meng Wei nodded slightly, swallowed the pill that was almost homologous to his own spiritual power, then sat up cross-legged and began to heal. Ye Xianming was not in a hurry, knowing that it would take a lot of time for Meng Wei to completely refine the medicinal power, so he turned around and walked to Zuyun. Your name is Zuyun, right? According to your seniority, you should call me uncle. Meng Wei and Zuyun both mentioned Ye Xuanhua, who was obviously a fellow student of the Xian generation. Since Zuyun was his disciple, there was nothing wrong with calling him uncle. Zuyun raised his brows and said calmly, then I don't know what the alchemist uncle has to say. Ye Xianming scratched his head and smiled, uncle, I am alone in Peeper Realm and struggling. This time I return to Yeazhu. Firstly, I want to see how the 7-star sect is doing, and secondly, I want to find an alchemy furnace again. Although my nephew's cauldron looks a little dilapidated, I felt it was very convenient when I first purified my spiritual power. I wonder if my nephew can part with it and transfer it to me. Zuyun narrowed his eyes slightly, secretly feeling that something was wrong, but he couldn't remember what was wrong for a while. To be honest, he already has a high-level cauldron, so it doesn't matter if he wants this intermediate one or not. Don't talk about transferring it, it doesn't matter if you give it away. At this time, Big Dog said, Old Ye, aren't you a pill demon? Such a powerful person doesn't even have a furnace, right? Chen Hua also echoed from the side, yes, Lao Ye, When I first met you, you bragged to us every day about how good you were at making alchemy, and you also said that when you get out of the secret realm, you would take us to see your treasure. Hearing the careless joking between the two, Zuyun suddenly found the problem. Both of them are right. They are so obsessed with alchemy that they even forgot the day they got married. This shows that they are extremely accomplished in alchemy. How could they use this convenient excuse to break the alchemy furnace to ask for it? Even I myself want a more advanced alchemy furnace, let alone him. In other words, Ye Xianming must have seen the extraordinary quality of this furnace. And I still don't know it? Then it's impossible to give it to you. Zuyun did what he did. I'm really sorry, Master Dan Demon. This cauldron is of great significance to me, and it's the only cauldron I have. You see, it's so worn out, so you can't bear to part with it. Change. Hearing this, Ye Xianming couldn't help but cursed in his heart. Your kid is only over 20 years old. I can't tell how many years this alchemy furnace has been in existence. How can you still break it? However, he had to ask for help. No matter how dissatisfied Ye Xianming was, he could only swallow it in his stomach. Moreover, he thought that Zuyun was taking the opportunity to rip him off and wanted to learn some more advanced alchemy techniques from him. As soon as he rolled his eyes, Ye Xianming said with a smile, Master Nephew, our masters came from the same section. Now the 7-star sect has been destroyed. Your master doesn't know where he is, and your uncle has nothing to teach you. I'll give you some homemade elixir recipes. Hearing this, everyone present widened their eyes. A single elixir can cause countless powerful people to grab it? How could he, Ye Xianming, be so willing to do it for the sake of the 7-star sect? But the more this happened, the more Zuyun felt that there was something unusual about this broken furnace. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 170. My nephew thanks my uncle for his love, but please forgive me for not being able to transfer this alchemy furnace. This alchemy furnace is really of great significance to my nephew. Just when everyone thought Zuyun would definitely accept it, they didn't expect that he would directly refuse. This kid doesn't have much strength, but I didn't expect him to be a person who values love and justice. Even such great benefits can't sway his heart. Luo Yanran suddenly said something again, and she didn't know what she meant. But Meng Wei's eyelids trembled. She could tell that the master was telling her. Ye Xianming had no time to deal with Luo Yanran, so he hurriedly said, Master Nephew, no matter how important the meaning is it important to have your own pursuits? Look at me, Master, I even gave up my wife in order to make alchemy. This furnace is the master's. I am the most skilled in alchemy for hundreds of years. And you are cultivating immortality to pursue the way to immortality. You are not majoring in alchemy, so what is the use of this broken alchemy furnace? Zuyun sneered in his heart, and became more and more determined not to transfer this furnace to Ye Xianming. Uncle, there is no need to say anything. He shook his head resolutely, and even stood up and put the alchemy furnace into his storage bag, and then continued, for my nephew, human kindness is far more important than immortality. These words made De Go and Ergo feel warm in their hearts, but they knew that this was Zuyun's truth. The three of them grew up together in the barren stone mountain, and then went to the Spirit Sword sect together. 10 years have passed with completely different opportunities, but the relationship has not changed at all. Even Chen Hua believed that Zuyun was speaking from the bottom of his heart. However, Zuyun saw the relationship between Ye Xianming and De Go and others, and also helped Meng Wei heal his injuries. It would be a bit difficult for him to kill him first. Thinking of this, Zuyun was extremely confused again. Do you have to wait for him to make the first move? Ye Xianming also saw the situation clearly at this time. Taking things by force was obviously not his strong point. At this moment, he could only confuse Zuyun first and then make long-term plans. I saw a forced smile on his face, and said in a helpless tone, "Why is my nephew reacting so badly? I have to refine elixirs for Master Meng later, so you put the cauldron away. How can I practice later?" Zuyun hesitated for a moment, then took out the cauldron and put it on the same place. He wanted to see what conspiracy Ye Xianming was up to. Is it possible to put the furnace cauldron directly into the storage bag and escape? Unless the light door here is opened, even if he escapes throughout the secret realm, he will not end up in the Dewu glazed mirror. Of course, the premise is that Zuyun can let the fragments in his chest merge with the secret realm and become part of his natal magic weapon. So after Meng Wei recovered from his injury, he had to go take a look inside the formation. Maybe the key lies in the wooden house. If this problem can be solved in the secret realm, nothing will happen to Luo Yanran. As for finding some genius treasure, Zuyun was not interested at all. As long as the secret realm is integrated, doesn't everything in it belong to him? Thinking of this, Zuyun also couldn't wait to hope that Meng Wei would regain his strength quickly. However, he was always paying attention to Ye Xianming. Although he did not release his spiritual consciousness or look directly at him, his soul was unconsciously sensing that way. Finally, Meng Wei had absorbed the power of the entire pill. Although his aura was still a little sluggish, it was no longer as weak as before when he was blown away by the wind. Ye Xianming also walked up quickly. After taking Meng Wei's pulse, he took out several pills and motioned Meng Wei to take them. After telling her what she needed to pay attention to during refining and absorption, he walked to the intermediate furnace. "Palace Master Meng, Ye needs to refine the last elixir for you, please wait a moment." After saying that, Ye Xianming took out the spirit wood from the storage bag again, but his hand froze soon. There are only a few under the furnace, which seems not enough to refine a furnace of elixirs. After hesitating for a moment, he walked towards Zuyun. Nephew, if you don't want to transfer this cauldron, how about I borrow some spiritual wood?" Zuyun was slightly stunned. The spirit wood was not worth much, and he didn't have a lot of it. For a period of time after obtaining Fentianyan, he did not use Fentianyan to refine pills. At most, he concentrated his own fire spiritual power to increase the intensity of the flames burned by the spiritual wood. But Ye Xianming borrowed spiritual wood from him. As an alchemy demon, could it be that he didn't even have enough preparation for these most basic materials? There is only one explanation. That means Ye Xianming must have spiritual fire. But he chose to keep it and did not prepare to use spiritual fire to refine the elixir. But there is nothing to expose, even Zuyun himself will not reveal Fentianyan at will. But this undoubtedly proves that Ye Xianming is a thoughtful person and is not as heartless as he appears. Yes, otherwise, how could he, a person with basically no independent fighting ability, survive in another territory for so many years? Zuyun calmly walked to the furnace, took out hundreds of spiritual trees from the storage bag, and helped Ye Xianming pile them up. As he piled them up, he said generously, "It's okay, I have a lot of spirit trees." "Master, you're welcome. If you don't have any anymore, just tell me." "Ha ha ha, I'm short of spirit wood, and I need a lot of it. If my nephew has enough, I can transfer some. When I get out of the secret realm, I can go to my uncle's hiding place and get some things. I'll replace it with you." The provincial master went to Fangxi to buy it again. Ye Xianming laughed and set a trap for Zuyun in his words. Unfortunately, Zuyun would not be fooled at all. Unless there was a wonderful place for the two of them to be alone, he would not show his murderous intention. They are all worthless things. Zuyun waved his hand and said, "Nephew, that's not what I said. If the Seven Stars sect was still there would naturally be disciples who would prepare these spiritual woods. But now you and I are no different from casual cultivators. It will still take a lot of time, right?" Ye Xianming seemed to want to show his sincerity. He looked straight at Zuyun with a harmless smile. Zuyun was deeply aware of the truth that too much talk will lead to mistakes, and he didn't want to say more to Ye Xianming. He simply changed the subject and said, "Young Palace Master Meng is in urgent need of elixirs. Let's talk about this later." Ye Xianming also quickly regained his mind. He knew that under the current circumstances, only by building a good relationship with Meng Wei could he obtain this furnace in the secret realm. At the moment of lighting the fire, Ye Xianming said quietly in his heart, "I hope you can know what's good for you." Time in the secret realm seemed to pass very quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed. Not only did Meng Wei's injuries recover completely, but his strength had also returned to the peak of the late stage of foundation building. Zuyun was wary of Luo Yanran, so he did not choose to go to the formation together. Instead, he kept searching for some spiritual medicines in the secret realm with De Go and others, and he also gained a lot. Luo Yanran was not in a hurry either. She wanted to meet a suitable female cultivator directly in the secret realm and then possess her with the golden elixir. Ye Xianming hoped so even more, so that he could have more time to build a good relationship with the others. If he could gain Zuyun's trust, he would not have to do it. To be honest, for Zuyun's identity as a disciple of the Seven Stars sect, he still believed in not killing people. But unfortunately, this furnace was related to the great cause of the elixir, and no one could stop it. Even if it violated the rules of the Seven Stars sect. Like Zuyun, Meng Wei was also worried. But her main purpose of chasing the light column at that time was to find Luo Yanran. Now that the goal has been achieved, she can't help but think of what the relationship between Zuyun and the holy object in this sect is. But the group did not separate at all, and Meng Wei did not find a chance to ask Zuyun. "You are worried?" Until today, when everyone was resting in a low-lying grassland, Luo Yanran suddenly appeared again, making Meng Wei's face tighten. She forced herself to be calm and said, "Why did Master say that?" "I'm not blind." Luo Yanran's tone actually showed a hint of ridicule. "In the past half-month, you have always intentionally or unintentionally approached Zuyun. Why, knowing that your lifespan is not much, you want to have a twilight sister-brother love?" In an instant, Meng Wei's pretty face was extremely red. I thought that Luo Yanran asked this question because he saw the clues about the holy object and Zuyun, but I never thought it was such an indecent word. But it must be said that Luo Yanran's description is still very accurate. Her lifespan is less than 100 years, and for her who was once in the Jindan stage, it is indeed the twilight of her life. As for the title of sister and brother, Zuyun's bones are only more than 20 years old, so there is naturally no need to say more. Seeing Meng Wei almost vomiting blood, Luo Yanran thought that he had really guessed it right, and couldn't help but cheer up. "Why, did the master guess it right?" Meng Wei was extremely flustered. "Master, don't talk nonsense, my disciple is already dying, it's impossible for me to be with him." "Maybe or not, wait for you to complete it. He saved you from the suppression of Wanjian Mountain. It is said that saving a life should be rewarded with one's body. The master sees that you have taken life and death lightly and have no intention of Yaluo sect anymore, so just let you go. And that boy is a man who values love and righteousness, which is completely different from the cultivators the master has seen in his life. Becoming a Taoist partner with him, you won't be wasting your life." Meng Wei knew that Luo Yanran had always taken things between men and women lightly, and even never asked his disciples what sect their Taoist partners were from. Of course, this was also related to the principle of their Yaluo sect to do whatever they want. But she never dared to imagine that when they met again today, the master would speak so bluntly. Just as he was stunned, Luo Yanran suddenly said loudly in the direction of Zuyun, "Hey! Zuyun boy, what's the point of hanging out with those fake female cultivators every day? Why don't you come and see my disciple with fair skin, beautiful face, and long legs? She is a real female cultivator." This sudden voice, Such a fierce and explicit words, immediately made everyone stand there. The fake female cultivators mentioned by Luo Yanran all fixed their eyes on Zuyun. Zuyun was also dumbfounded, until Daegu suddenly pushed him, smiled evilly and whispered, "Hee hee, Xiaozu, if that little demon girl follows you, I can call her my sister-in-law in the future, and it will be very face-saving to say it." Ergu hurriedly followed, "Me too." Meng Wei was stunned, and suddenly reacted, and suddenly stepped on his own life weapon and flew away at a high speed. Chen Hua pushed Zuyun's back and cursed, "Young Master Meng is definitely interested in you, why don't you chase him? You are a wooden man." Yasuan Meng's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, "My nephew must be shy, it's okay, I will go with you."